Mary stepped out of the prison gate with slow, uncertain steps, as if the ground might disappear beneath her feet. 20 years behind walls had taught her to move carefully and speak little. Her hair was gray now, and her face carried lines carved by waiting and regret. In her hand she held a small worn bag that carried all that remained of her past life. No one stood outside to welcome her, and no familiar voice called her name. The silence felt heavier than the prison doors she had left behind. She walked toward the bus stop with her head lowered and her thoughts racing. Freedom felt strange and loud even though the street was quiet. Cars passed by and people moved with purpose, yet none noticed the old woman walking alone. Mary wondered if the world had forgotten her the way she had slowly faded from it. She remembered the day she was taken away and how her house stood waiting behind her. That house had lived in her heart every single night she spent away. The bus ride back to her town felt endless and unreal. She watched buildings slide past the window and tried to recognize the shapes. Many places looked different, and some no longer existed at all. Time had changed everything except the ache in her chest. She pressed her hand against the glass and whispered her old street name in her mind. It was the only thing that still felt real to her. When the bus finally stopped, Mary stepped down carefully. The air smelled familiar, yet distant, like a memory half forgotten. She stood still for a moment, gathering courage to move forward. Her legs felt weak, but her heart pushed her onward. Each step toward her old neighborhood felt heavier than the last. She feared what she might find, and feared even more what she might not. The houses on the street stood close together like tired old friends. Paint had faded and fences leaned, but the road still led her home. Mary recognized the bend in the path and the crooked tree near the corner. Her breath caught when she saw the blue gate ahead of her. The color was dull now, and rust crept along the hinges. Still, it was the same gate she once closed behind her long ago. She placed her hand on the gate and closed her eyes. Memories rushed in like a sudden storm. She remembered laughter in the yard and quiet evenings by the window. She remembered locking the door for the last time with fear in her heart. Now she stood there again, older and alone. The gate opened with a soft sound as she pushed it inward. The yard was overgrown and weeds reached toward her ankles. Flowers she once planted had vanished, leaving only dry soil behind. Mary walked slowly up the path, feeling like a stranger in her own past. The house stood silent with its windows dark and watchful. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the old key. Her fingers shook as she held it tightly. The key slid into the lock with effort, as if resisting her return. Mary turned it slowly, and the door opened just enough to let her in. A cold stillness filled the room as she stepped inside. Dust covered the furniture, and the air smelled of time and neglect. Light slipped through torn curtains and painted pale lines on the floor. The house felt empty yet not completely silent. Mary paused and listened closely. A faint movement echoed from deeper within the house. Her heart began to race and her breath grew shallow. She wondered if someone else had claimed her home. Fear crept into her thoughts, but she forced herself to move forward. Her footsteps sounded loud in the quiet room. She walked toward the living area and stopped suddenly. There in the center of the room stood a dog. It was thin with dull fur, but its eyes were bright and steady. The dog did not bark or growl or run away. It simply looked at her, as if studying her face. Mary felt shock rush through her body. The dog took one slow step closer and then sat down. Its tail moved gently against the dusty floor. Mary felt tears rise as confusion and wonder mixed inside her. She had not owned a dog before, and yet this one seemed calm around her. The house that felt abandoned moments ago now felt alive. She whispered a soft breath and lowered herself onto a chair. The dog watched her closely, as if guarding something unseen. Mary noticed marks on the wall and signs of quiet living. Someone or something had been surviving here in her absence. The dog's eyes never left her face. It felt as though the animal recognized her in a way no human ever had. Her heart pounded as she realized her return was not unnoticed. Mary sat still, afraid to break the moment. The house held its breath around them. After 20 years of silence, her life had spoken back to her. The dog rose and walked slowly toward her. It stopped just short and looked up into her eyes. In that moment Mary knew her return carried a meaning she did not yet understand. Mary stayed seated as the dog stood before her, calm and unmoving. Her hands rested on her knees and her breathing slowly eased. The dog tilted its head slightly, as if listening to thoughts she had not spoken. Years of loneliness pressed against her chest and softened in that quiet moment. She had faced guards and cold walls, yet this silent animal made her feel exposed. The house no longer felt empty, and that realization unsettled her deeply. The dog turned and walked toward the hallway, stopping beside an old door. It looked back at Mary and waited patiently. She hesitated, unsure whether to follow or remain still. Curiosity slowly overcame fear, and she rose from the chair. Her legs ached, but she forced herself forward step by step. The dog moved again, guiding her gently without sound. They reached a small room that once served as storage. Mary remembered keeping boxes of letters and photos there long ago. The door creaked as she pushed it open. Inside the room she saw a simple blanket folded in the corner. A bowl sat nearby, along with signs of careful living. The dog had clearly made this space its shelter. Mary felt a deep ache at the thought of the animal surviving alone. She wondered how long it had lived there without care. The dog lay down on the blanket and looked up at her calmly. Its trust felt heavy and unexpected. She lowered herself slowly onto the floor despite the pain in her knees. For the first time since her release, she felt needed. Her eyes scanned the room and landed on something familiar. An old wooden box sat against the wall, untouched by time. Mary's breath caught as she recognized it instantly. It was the box she had hidden beneath her bed years ago. She had placed letters inside that no one else was meant to see. The box being here meant something had protected it all these years. She reached out and touched the box gently. The wood felt worn but solid beneath her fingers. The dog watched closely but did not move. Mary opened the lid slowly as memories flooded back. Inside lay letters written in her younger hand, full of hope and pain. Tears blurred her vision as she lifted the first page. She read words meant for a future she never believed would arrive. Promises to herself and dreams of peace filled the pages. Mary pressed the letter to her chest as emotion overwhelmed her. She realized the dog must have guarded this box unknowingly. In a strange way, it had protected her past. The thought made her heart ache with gratitude. Mary stayed in the room for a long time, reading silently. The dog remained beside her, never leaving her side. Sunlight shifted slowly across the floor, marking the passing hours. She felt time moving again, something she had forgotten how to feel. The house no longer seemed like a place of loss. It felt like a quiet witness waiting for her return. Hunger eventually reminded her of her body. She stood slowly and made her way to the kitchen. The dog followed close behind her, steps light and careful. The cupboards were mostly empty, but she found a few old items. She shared what little she had with the dog. It ate gently, as if grateful but not desperate. As evening approached, Mary sat by the window watching shadows grow. The street outside remained quiet and distant. She wondered if neighbors remembered her, or if she had become a ghost. The dog rested near her feet, offering warmth without words. For the first time she did not feel completely alone. The house breathed softly around them both. Night fell and the house grew dark. Mary lit a small lamp and sat listening to the quiet. She felt safe yet uncertain of what tomorrow would bring. The dog lifted its head suddenly, ears alert. A sound echoed outside, faint but clear. Someone was approaching the house after many silent years. Mary sat still as the sound outside grew closer. Her body tensed and her hands gripped the edge of the chair. The dog rose quietly and moved toward the door without fear. Its calm behavior confused her and eased her heart at the same time. She listened carefully as footsteps paused near the gate. Memories of sudden knocks from long ago stirred uneasily inside her. The door handle moved slightly and then stopped. A soft voice called out into the night, speaking her name gently. Mary froze as her breath caught in her throat. No one had spoken her name with care in many years. The dog glanced back at her, as if asking permission. She stood slowly and walked toward the door. When Mary opened it, a young woman stood under the porch light. Her clothes were simple, and her expression held caution and concern. She introduced herself as Anna and explained she lived 2 houses away. She said she had been leaving food for the dog for months. Anna looked surprised and relieved to see Mary standing there. She had believed the house was abandoned. Mary listened quietly as Anna spoke. The young woman explained how she had noticed the dog guarding the house. It never left the yard and never accepted food unless left at the gate. Anna sensed the dog was protecting something important. She respected that and kept her distance. Seeing Mary now answered questions she never dared to ask. Mary invited Anna inside, feeling nervous but grateful. They sat together at the small table with the dog lying between them. Anna spoke gently, careful not to overwhelm the older woman. She asked if Mary had just returned. Mary nodded and shared only small pieces of her past. She was not ready to speak of everything yet. Anna listened without judgment and offered quiet understanding. She spoke of changes in the neighborhood and the passage of time. Many people had moved away and new families had arrived. The world had shifted without waiting for Mary. Yet this small room held a fragile connection to the present. The dog rested calmly, as if approving the moment. As the night deepened, Anna prepared to leave. She offered to help Mary find supplies in the morning. Mary hesitated, but then accepted the kindness. It felt strange to need help again. Yet it also felt human and grounding. Anna smiled and promised to return at first light. When the door closed, Mary leaned against it, feeling exhausted. The dog walked over and pressed its side gently against her leg. She reached down and touched its fur for the first time. The warmth surprised her and brought quiet comfort. That simple contact filled a space inside her she had forgotten. She whispered thanks, though no words were needed. Sleep came slowly that night. Mary lay on the old couch listening to the sounds of the house. The dog curled up nearby, keeping watch. Dreams came filled with memories and soft faces. She woke several times, unsure of where she was. Each time the dog remained there, steady and real. Morning arrived with pale light through the window. Mary rose carefully, feeling stiff but alive. The dog stretched and wagged its tail quietly. She found herself smiling at the simple sight. Together they stepped outside into the yard. The air felt fresh and full of possibility. Anna returned as promised, carrying a small bag of food. She greeted Mary warmly and knelt to greet the dog. The dog accepted her touch calmly, showing trust. Mary watched the exchange, feeling a sense of balance. This animal had bridged the gap between past and present. It had kept her place alive until she could return. They walked together to the nearby store. Mary felt eyes glance her way, but no one spoke. She felt invisible and visible all at once. Anna stayed beside her, offering quiet support. The dog walked proudly between them. For the first time, Mary felt part of the world again. Back at the house, Mary unpacked small supplies. She cleaned slowly, bringing order back into each room. The dog followed her patiently, as if learning her rhythm. Each cleared space felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. The house began to feel warmer and more real. Life was slowly returning to forgotten corners. That evening, Mary sat by the window watching the sunset. Colors spread across the sky, gentle and forgiving. The dog rested at her feet, content and calm. She thought about the years lost and the time ahead. Pain still existed, but hope now lived beside it. Something important had been waiting for her all along. Mary woke early on the final morning with sunlight touching the walls softly. The house felt different now, filled with quiet warmth and gentle purpose. She moved slowly through the rooms, opening windows and letting fresh air in. The dog followed her steps, calm and alert as always. She paused and looked around, realizing this place was truly hers again. After many years she felt rooted instead of lost. Anna arrived later carrying fresh bread and warm smiles. She spoke easily now, as if Mary had always belonged here. They shared breakfast at the small table, talking about simple things. Mary listened more than she spoke, still learning the rhythm of freedom. The dog rested near them, content and relaxed. This quiet routine felt like a gift. After breakfast, Anna helped Mary clean the yard. They pulled weeds and cleared the path together. Mary worked slowly but with steady determination. Each small task felt meaningful and grounding. The dog explored the yard proudly, as if inspecting progress. The house responded with a sense of calm. As the day passed, neighbors began to notice movement. Some watched from a distance, curious but unsure. An older man waved gently from across the street. Mary returned the gesture, feeling nervous but grateful. The world was not as cold as she had feared. It was cautious but open to change. In the afternoon, Anna suggested naming the dog. Mary smiled softly at the idea. She thought carefully, remembering how the dog had waited faithfully. She chose a simple name that felt right. She called the dog Max, and he responded instantly. The name sealed a quiet bond between them. Max stayed close as Mary rested in the shade. She looked at the sky, watching clouds drift slowly. Time no longer felt like an enemy chasing her. It felt like a companion moving at her pace. She reflected on the years she could not reclaim. She accepted them as part of her story. Later, Anna left, promising to return the next day. Mary stood at the door, watching her go. She felt thankful for kindness without questions. Max sat beside her, steady and present. The house grew quiet again, but not lonely. It felt complete in a new way. As evening approached, Mary opened the wooden box once more. She reread the letters, not with pain but with understanding. The words belonged to someone she had been. She honored that woman with gentle respect. She placed the letters back carefully. They no longer held her captive. Mary prepared a simple meal and shared it with Max. She laughed softly at his gentle patience. The sound surprised her and felt unfamiliar. It was the first laugh she had allowed herself in years. The house seemed to welcome the sound. Walls that once held silence now held life. Night arrived slowly, with stars filling the sky. Mary stepped outside and breathed deeply. The air felt cool and kind. She felt present in a way she had forgotten. Max stood beside her, watching the darkness. Together they faced the quiet without fear. Before sleep, Mary placed a small light near the window. It glowed softly as a sign of life. She settled onto the couch, feeling tired but peaceful. Max curled up nearby, his presence steady. She closed her eyes without worry. Sleep came gently this time. Days passed and a new routine formed. Mary visited the local store and spoke more each time. Her voice grew stronger with each conversation. She began to feel seen again. Max became known as the loyal house dog. People smiled when they saw them together. One afternoon, Mary sat on the porch watching children play. She felt no bitterness, only quiet acceptance. Life had moved forward, and so would she. She began to plan small goals for herself. Gardening, reading, and helping where she could. The future no longer felt empty. Mary realized the dog had not shocked her by being there. He had shocked her by waiting. Waiting through seasons and silence. Waiting for someone who might never return. That loyalty changed something deep within her. It taught her that she was still worth waiting for. As the sun set one evening, Mary stood in the doorway. She looked at the house, then at Max. She felt a sense of belonging settle in her chest. This was not just a return. It was a beginning shaped by patience and care. Mary stepped inside, ready to live again.